Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Alex Dvorkin, and I'm a managing partner at 4D Capital. We specialize in a very unique set of mathematical calculations that allow us to predict what the overall stock market and individual stocks will do going forward in both time and price. These same calculations also allow us to predict exactly when the nuclear exchange between Russia and China alliance and NATO members will take place. Hence the book you see on the screen, and hence the title of this video, Countdown to Armageddon. If you notice below, we have 1,395 days left before that particular juncture arrives, at least according to our calculation. And there's going to be an all-out nuclear exchange between, once again, Russia and China alliance and NATO members, destroying the entire northern hemisphere in the process. Now, I've described the reasoning behind this particular prediction in prior videos. If you would click on some of the links in the description of this videos, it will take you there, where we discuss the 84-year war cycle associated with the United States, as well as the overall stock market composition and how they merge in the summer of 2029 perfectly, and indicate that's when a nuclear exchange will take place. So with that in mind, we're still working a bit on a format of our presentations, but basically we're going to be doing daily videos, kind of updating people on what's going on around the world, giving you our analysis and guiding you through this very difficult period of time that is to come, and hopefully giving you enough information where you can protect yourself and protect your family and avoid what is about to happen in the world around us. So there are three very important topics I want to talk about, or I want to cover today. Obviously, the situation with Israel and Trump. I also want to talk about Trump's economic war on China and the 130% tariffs, what happened on Friday, where we are today, and what's going to happen in the future. And finally, we'll talk about the very serious situation of what's going on with Russia, Tomahawk missiles, and the escalation ladder that we're currently on with that matter. So let's jump into it. Obviously, the biggest news today is the situation in Israel. From our perspective, that is all well and good, but you also have to read between the lines of what's going on. So obviously that's the primary news, but if you read some of the articles, Mr. Trump, or President Trump I should say, is basically coming out and saying the end of age of terror and death after Hamas releases all remaining hostages. And let's see what else. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but I think, as we've indicated last week, you have to read between the lines here. Any lasting peace between Hamas or Palestinian Gaza and Israel is essentially impossible. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, we all know that Israel's drive towards having a greater Israel. And we all know that they want that Gaza territory for various reasons, not only from an economic perspective, but also from a strategic perspective, whether it could be various pipeline build, as well as another channel connecting Red Sea and going around the Suez Channel. So there's a lot of economic reasons for the Israel to want that land, and we see current situation as a temporary peace, let's put it that way, and a peace that probably not going to last very long. Hopefully I'm wrong. Definitely people of Gaza deserve that. The United States was essentially complicit in this genocide, which is what it was, and hopefully it stops for the time being, but we have to be aware that most likely there's not going to be a long-lasting peace. Okay. And the reason number two, you have to kind of read between the lines, is the war with Iran, or continuation of this particular war with Iran. So we talked about this 84-year cycle, and we talked about how on June 22nd of 1941, World War II really kicked off with Hitler invading Russia. So that's, you can argue, before that there were little skirmishes, even Hitler taking over France wasn't such a big deal, but the World War II really kicked off on June 22nd of 1941. And if we bring that 84-year cycle forward, we end up on June 22nd of of this year, 2025, right? And what happened on June 22nd of this year? Well, President Trump, as you know, ordered and delivered a strike on Iran's nuclear sector, where they tried to destroy it. I don't actually, it's rather funny, but all they did is bomb the mountain. Of course, Mr. Trump came out and declared it a huge victory, but it was none of those things, right? From our perspective, that particular day is very important from a timing perspective, because it's a marker. It's a marker where a very serious conflict has begun. So I think why Israel is moving forward with this current peace deal, well, twofold. Once again, is the American citizens are sick and tired of supporting genocide. We want nothing to do with that. I think, or I believe I'm speaking for probably 95% of people in the United States, and the rest of them, the rest of the 5% are probably crazies, bloodthirsty crazies. That's the bottom line. Doesn't matter who you support, whether you support Israel or killing people is killing people. And what Israel has committed in Gaza, with the help of the United States, not only from a monetary perspective but also from weapons supplies, is simply genocide. There's no other way to put it. And personally, I don't want anything to do with it, and I'm sure most of Americans would agree with that. So basically, so that was point number two. But point number two is they want to move towards Iran again. So Iran, they want to destroy, they want a regime change, and they're preparing. They cannot have a two-front war in both Gaza and in Iran. So from my perspective, what's going on behind the scenes is Mr. Trump and Netanyahu are getting ready for round number 2 with Iran. Now, it's probably going to turn up very, very badly for both sides, both Iran, Israel, and probably US to a certain extent, but nevertheless, that's what they want to do. And you kind of have to read between the lines why this particular peace deal has been signed, because they're shifting gears, they're allocating resources towards the upcoming war with Iran, okay? And I talked about earlier about December 7th or December 13th of this year. Once again, this 84-year cycle that I talked about hits on December 13th of this year, 2025. Once again, Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, was the official start of war for the United States. December 13th, plus or minus 1 week, let's say plus or minus 30 days at the max, which actually gets us very close to the time window that we're already talking about, gets us to a very serious period of time within American history that indicates that something very serious is going to happen. Now, I personally don't believe it's going to be Iran. I think it's going to be something happening with Russia, and we talk about that in a second. But nevertheless, something very serious is coming. Perhaps it's going to be a combination of Iran and Russia and perhaps something else. But this is a very serious period of time that we have to be looking towards. Okay, so that's Trump and Israel. You know, he's just boasting. He's suggesting that Netanyahu should not be prosecuted. This is probably the worst war criminal over the last couple of decades, and here's his best friend Trump supporting him. It's really rather interesting what Israel has on Trump and on a lot of our executive branch to have such influence over the political process that we're currently suffering under. So yeah, it's a really bad situation. Everybody knows it, and hopefully we somehow get dissociated from this particular country, and I'm sure a lot of Americans would agree with me on that. So let's jump to what's going on with Trump's tariffs on China and what's going to happen going forward. So obviously markets are reacting in a positive way. They are bouncing to a certain extent. Not as much as they've lost on Friday, but nevertheless they're bouncing. I will not go into the mathematical composition of the stock market in this presentation. Let me just say very quickly that those who are expecting the stock market to continue to go much, much higher are greatly mistaken, because the bull market that we've been forecasting, the bull market that we've been projecting and predicting is, I don't want to say I'm not going to say anything about it. If you want to know exactly what's going on in the stock market, where the top is, when it's going to arrive, has it arrived already, as a matter of fact, please request a free 30-day trial from our service, and you will see that information there. So, these tariffs things, as I've been talking for a long time, it's an absolute disaster for the United States. It's a misguided policy, to say the least. It's idiotic from my perspective. There's absolutely no benefit. I'm not sure who's coming out and saying that there's any benefit that will come from putting up tariffs, not only on China, but overall. I'm just broadly speaking at this point in time. Let me just do that and we'll go back to China. But there's absolutely no economic benefit for the United States from these tariffs, okay? The only thing that's going to happen is we're going to have increase in prices, and we're already seeing that in not only in grocery stores, we're seeing it throughout the broad spectrum of products out there, because most of the countries Mr. Trump has increased tariffs on, and most of the goods are coming in, and for the most part the suppliers cannot eat most of the cost, so it's being passed on and will continue to be passed on to American consumers. So we are paying more, and of course nobody likes it. Now the Trump administration will come out and say, well, we've straightened the bar. Now it's a more competitive field, and we have a lot of money coming in, but it's hogwash. Okay, simply put, it's hogwash. And the fact that we have more money coming in is absolutely meaningless when we have so much debt associated with the American financial system, over 33 trillion, and they're just printing money. So whatever extra income that they generate from tariffs, I'm not going to curse, I promise. It's absolutely meaningless from a macroeconomic perspective. So Trump has initiated this war with China in belief that he's going to have a very quick victory. They're going to roll over and they're going to play dead, and the Trump administration is going to do whatever it is that they want to do. And that was a very big strategic mistake from our perspective, because as you see, China is not rolling over. They're fighting back, and they, from our perspective, hold all the cards. So there could have been two reasons. One is absolutely terrible, why this particular tariff increase on Friday, and the other one is a more legitimate. So let's start with the clown show one, okay? So Mr. Trump didn't get his Nobel Prize nomination on Friday, and perhaps he was quite upset and did this to China, okay? But the secondary reason, and probably a more likely one, is the fact that China has put severe restriction on rare earth metals, and we need those for our military machine, for our technology sector. So without those, U.S. is in big trouble. So Mr. Trump decided to come out and say it's a good idea to raise tariffs 100% to 130%, or actually I'm not sure, perhaps it's actually compounded on the previous increase, so it could be 150% approximately. I'm not sure how they're calculating that, but that could be a real possibility. So that's a big problem, and that's a big problem because China has all the cards. Sure, their economy is going to suffer. Their economy is not going to suffer probably quite significantly because of the number of exports going to the United States that will come to a head, but not as much as the United States will suffer from the Chinese selling our debt, for example, from the Chinese limiting the rare earth exports, from doing many other things that they can possibly do. So now they're coming out and saying, oh, well, we are best friends again. I'm talking to President He. We de-escalating, or here's the headline: expect de-escalation and concessions from both sides. Goldman breaks down the latest U.S.-China spat. I don't believe so, because if history is any guide, we've seen it time and time again. Once we get on this escalator of increasing tensions, it's very, very difficult to get out because you lose face, okay? So the Chinese definitely don't want to lose face. The Americans don't want to lose face. Trump definitely doesn't want to lose face. So for their base, it's very important to come out and say, well, listen, we're winning this war even though we're losing this war, and we're losing this war by a mile. And it's not noticeable yet, even with the tariff increases that we had before, but it will become noticeable over the next couple of months. Particularly after Christmas break. So it's a very difficult situation where we see that both China and you also have to, we'll talk about Russia and China here in a second, but you have to take Russia into consideration as well. And China and Russia understand that they're currently in a Cold War, economic war with the United States and NATO. You can argue that Russia is already in a hot war, and we're getting actually because of Ukraine, we're getting very close to the actual war with the United States, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. But yeah, so it's a very dangerous time, and from our perspective, the economic war between the United States and China will increase. So make your beds accordingly. Make your bed accordingly. As crypto speculators found out on Friday, it's a very bad idea to be bullish at this point in time. And I think that not only applies to the crypto market, it also applies to the overall stock market. As we talked about on Friday and last week, we are in the most expensive market ever in history. More than 1929. More expensive than 2000, more expensive than 2007, so on and so forth. So take that in consideration. So with that in mind, let's jump to Russia, and it's a very serious situation. What's going on between the United States and Russia at this point in time. I was hopeful when President Trump won on this promise alone. I truly believe that he won because he tried to stop the war between Ukraine and Russia, or he promised that he would stop it. But even the Biden administration was not this stupid, and we talked about it last week. But this headline basically is a dead on accurate. World War III alert: Russia hints at nuclear response if Trump supplies Ukraine with U.S. Tomahawk missiles. And there are a couple of articles in the same regards. Financial Times. Well, we'll talk about this in a second, but. Yeah, so Ukraine to get Tomahawks if war not settled. Trump. That means that Tomahawk missiles are already in Ukraine as we speak. Okay, let's see. Which one is this? This one. I think. Kremlin warns the West over dramatic escalation moment in Ukraine war. This is what they talked about, and the reason they're talking about this. So let me just close this one, and okay. So the reason this is a really big problem, very serious escalation, as I described last week, is because Tomahawk missiles can be nuclear tipped. Okay, so imagine the Ukrainians shoot a Tomahawk missile towards Moscow or St. Petersburg or any other Russian city. Well, let's hope by God's grace the Russians can shoot it down, but that's what it is, hope, right? The problem is, when the missile comes out and is flying towards Russia, they have no idea whether or not that missile is nuclear tipped. So what kind of decision do you make? Put yourself, as an American, put yourself in the same shoes. Let's say you're in Washington, D.C., and by sheer luck, well, actually, Russia doesn't even have to be in Mexico or Canada. Let's say that there's a Russian submarine in the middle of Atlantic and they shoot a missile. a nuclear-capable missile, but Washington doesn't know if it's a nuclear-tipped missile or not. What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Well, I think they're going to go full nuclear. And that's the very serious situation that we're currently dealing with. And that's what, I'm not sure if Mr. Trump doesn't understand what he's dealing with or what he's playing with, but he's playing with all of our lives. Now, the good thing about our particular forecast is the fact that it's saying that, wait a second, we still have time. Once again, according to our mathematical and timing calculations, where an 84-year war cycle and the stock market cycle line up perfectly in the summer of 2029, that's when the nuclear exchange between the Russia and China alliance and NATO members will take place. But nevertheless, we're playing a very, very dangerous game with Russia that we shouldn't be playing. There's absolutely no reason for the Trump administration to shoot Tomahawk missiles towards Russia. This is insane. This is absolutely crazy. And I'm not sure if Mr. Trump doesn't understand what he's dealing with, but yeah, it's nuts. But that's the situation. And the problem is most Americans are completely unaware of the fact that this can set off a nuclear war. And this brings us to December 13th of this year. So once again, I'm talking about the 84-year cycle in the beginning of war. In 1941, December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor was the official start of the war for the United States. And this date is very important, and it's coming up. So what's going to happen? Now, if you analyze the whole situation as overall, there are certain indicators that the United States is preparing a decapitation strike or decapitation attempt on Russia. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. This is even worse than the Tomahawk missiles. I mean, perhaps Tomahawk missiles are going to be a part of that, but this is sheer insanity. I'm not entirely sure who's driving this train within the United States administration, but these are really, really, really stupid people because they're gambling with the lives of the rest of the Americans. This is not a joke. I mean, Russia has what is known as a deadhead. Even if they're successful in pulling off this strike, if there's a strike, Russia has the ability to launch all of their nuclear weapons, and if that happens, the entirety of the northern hemisphere is going to be dead. As simple as that. There's going to be nobody left alive. And if you were somehow to successfully survive the nuclear attack, you wish you were dead, but because of the radiation poisoning and starvation and all of that good stuff. So, point being, I want you to pay attention to this date that's coming up of December 13th, plus or minus, let's say, a week, and on a bigger scale, probably plus or minus 30 days, because a time variance can be quite significant with an 84-year cycle. Like on September 11th, it was actually 3 months. So the cycle ended in May of 2001, but the wars, Middle Eastern wars, started in, as you know, September 11th. So there was a 3-month variance. If you count that, we're already within that variance, so it's a very, very dangerous time. But I think this time, the cycle is going to be a little bit more accurate. So we're watching that December 13th, 2025, very, very, very strongly. Now, I'm not a big fan of what's going on with Trump administration, but I'm also not a big fan of what's going on with Putin administration as well. Let me see. Let me delete this. So Putin came out and basically he was praising Trump as the best thing since sliced bread. You know, he should have won the Nobel Prize. He's the greatest thing ever. Thank you for your peace efforts, etc. Come on, dude. One of the reasons we're in this situation, and I agree with Paul Craig Roberts on this, one of the reasons we're in this situation is because, before I get to that conclusion, look at this. U.S. guiding Ukrainian attacks on Russia energy, Financial Times. There's no question about it. There's intelligence out there. I mean, the Russians know this. It's the United States who is targeting, and I'm ashamed to be a part of this as an American citizen and a taxpayer. The United States is targeting Russian energy facilities, or anything else for that matter, for the Ukrainians. So they are a part of war. They are a part of this. Just because the war between Russia and the United States hasn't become kinetic yet doesn't mean anything, but US is already directly involved. It was before, we all knew it, but now it's coming out, and Russia knows it, and the Tomahawk missiles. But I agree with Paul Kirk-Roberts on this. Here, you can read it, I'll leave it on the screen. Come to your own conclusions. But basically, Putin is the problem as well, and the reason is because he's acting as a weakling and not striking back. Look, Trump is bombing Russia. Trump is sending Tomahawks. Trump is providing guidance to well, supposedly Ukrainians, but it doesn't matter. The Americans are shooting the missiles. They're hitting Russia directly. And what is Putin doing? He's singing praises to President Trump. This is absolute sheer insanity once again, and it should not be tolerated within Russia. And the reason we find ourselves in this situation, and the reason the nuclear war will eventually escalate, and we will have that nuclear exchange in the summer of 2029, is this particular weakness from the Russian leader. So I used to be a bit of a fan of President Putin, but I'm no longer am because of this very bad situation. There are certain voices in Russia that are pushing him to be a bit more aggressive, but he's not. And you can argue, and many people do argue, that benefits Russia, and that's Russia is playing a long game. It's all good and well until you understand what happens at the end of this game. The Americans are emboldened. They will continue provocations. The Russia is not reacting, and eventually they're going to push past the red line. Perhaps Tomahawk is going to be this red line. Perhaps something else. And when that happens, all hell is going to break loose. And once one nuclear weapon flies, they all fly. Every war game has come to that particular conclusion. So be aware of that and pay attention to this date that's coming up. And yeah, so they, just to finish up, Poland says it's ready for war with Russia. I really don't understand Polish people. If you look throughout their history, they always end up in the middle, and they always end up screwed. And you would hope by this point in time they would learn their lesson, but apparently they haven't. So after Ukraine, they're going to be next in line to get their ass whooped. And maybe they'll learn this time. Probably not. And perhaps after that, there's going to be no Poles left to learn that lesson. So we'll see. And so finally, just a propaganda or your tabloid kind of humor from the British press, the best, right? Of suggesting that Russia is the one at fault. So when the United States is sending Tomahawk missiles and billions of aid and attacking Russia directly and sending missiles towards Moscow and St. Petersburg, and somehow Russia is the one at fault for not only starting this war, but apparently getting ready to invade Europe. Why would you invade Europe? I'll put it at that. I'll stop it at that. So, to conclude, as you can see, everything is moving in that direction, unfortunately. The situation is very serious with the Tomahawk missiles at this point in time. And this December 13th time turning point, which is, I also forgot to mention, not only of the time cycle and the war cycle, but also coincides with a expected spike in volatility index, VIX, is a very, very dangerous time. So let's see what happens. That's it for today. We'll be back with another update tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye. And don't forget to subscribe.